I'm Lana, and let me tell you, life has a way of throwing you curveballs when you least expect it. One day, I was grinding away in a Boston office, juggling spreadsheets and dodging corporate politics like a pro. The next, I was elbow deep in flour, co-managing a bakery in a sleepy Maine coastal town with my husband, Jake. Maple Leaf Bakery wasn't just a business, it was supposed to be our fresh start, a place where we could build something together. But what I didn't know was how quickly the sweetness of that dream would turn bitter. Back in Boston, I'd been an office manager for a logistics firm, the kind of job that paid well but left you bone-tired. My parents had run a diner in a small Massachusetts town, pouring their hearts into every plate of eggs and hash browns. When they passed away a few years back, they left me a modest inheritance, money they'd saved for my future, a safety net I swore I'd protect. That nest egg was part of why I left the city. I wanted a life with less stress, more meaning. That's when I met Jake, all charm and easy smiles, who swept me off my feet with talk of his family's bakery and a quieter life by the ocean. We got married fast, too fast, maybe, and moved to this little Maine town near Portland, where Maple Leaf Bakery sat on a quaint street lined with lobster shacks and antique shops. The bakery had been Jake's dad's pride and joy before he passed, and Jake inherited it with big dreams but not much know-how. That's where I came in. I'd always been good with numbers, so I took over the books, streamlined orders, and even came up with a new line of maple pecan scones that had locals lining up before we opened. One morning, as I arranged a tray of those scones, still warm from the oven, I couldn't help but smile. The bakery was buzzing, customers were raving, and our sales were climbing. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. But not everyone saw it that way. Jake's mom, Diane, had a knack for showing up just when things were going smoothly, her sharp eyes scanning the bakery like she was inspecting a crime scene. Diane was a retired school administrator who carried herself like she still ran the show, any show. She'd breeze in, her perfume overpowering the scent of fresh bread, and make little comments that stung like paper cuts. Lana, dear, those scones are nice, but let's leave the real decisions to Jake, she'd say, patting her son's arm. Jake would grin, oblivious, while I bit my tongue and forced a smile. Good morning, Diane, I'd reply, keeping my voice steady. I told myself it didn't matter. She was just protective of the family legacy. But deep down, it hurt. I wasn't some hired hand. I was pouring my heart into this place. One day, as I was balancing the books after a busy weekend, Jake leaned over my shoulder, his familiar cologne mixing with the smell of cinnamon rolls. Sales are up again, I said, pointing to the numbers. Those maple pecan scones are a hit. He nodded, but there was a tightness in his smile I couldn't quite place. Yeah, you're killing it, he said, slipping an arm around me. Mom still thinks I'm the secret sauce, though. He laughed, but it sounded forced. I brushed it off, chalking it up to Diane's influence. Jake had always been close to his mom, and I figured she'd come around once she saw how much I was doing for the bakery. But as the weeks went on, I started to notice things that made my stomach twist, things that told me Maple Leaf Bakery wasn't the safe haven I'd thought it was. The first sign of trouble came with a delivery I didn't order. One morning, as I was icing cupcakes, a truck pulled up with crates of high-end coffee machines, fancy ones we didn't need and definitely couldn't afford. I checked the invoice, my heart sinking. Jake, what's this? I asked, holding up the paperwork. He was behind the counter, scrolling on his phone, a new, sleek model that looked like it cost more than our weekly payroll. He shrugged, barely looking up. Oh, just something to spruce up the place. We deserve nice things, Lana. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. We need to fix the oven first. It's been acting up, and customers are complaining about uneven pastries. Jake waved me off, his eyes still on his phone. It'll be fine. Don't stress. But stress was exactly what I did when I opened the books later that day. Our profits were shrinking, eaten up by purchases I hadn't approved, like Jake's new phone and Diane's parade of designer coats. She'd waltz in, twirling in a cashmere number that screamed money we didn't have. Isn't this stunning, Lana? She'd say, her smile daring me to object. It's nice. I'd manage, my voice tight. But shouldn't we prioritize the shop sign? It's peeling, and it's the first thing customers see. Diane would laugh, patting Jake's cheek. Nonsense, the bakery's doing great. Right, Jake? He'd nod, distracted, and I'd feel like I was shouting into a void. I tried again later that week, pulling Jake aside while we closed up. We need a budget for personal expenses, I said, pointing to the dwindling numbers in our ledger. This isn't sustainable. He looked at me like I'd suggested we shut down the bakery. A budget? Come on, Lana, we're not broke. You're being too cautious. That word, cautious, hit like a slap. I wasn't cautious. I was trying to save the business we'd built together. But Jake was already back on his phone, browsing for God knows what. Things got worse when Diane decided we needed extra help. One afternoon, while I was sorting inventory, she strolled in with a young woman who looked barely out of college. Lana, meet Kayla, Diane announced, her voice dripping with pride. She's here to help with the business side. I wiped flour off my hands, forcing a smile. Nice to meet you, Kayla. I'm actually co-manager here, so I'll get you up to speed. Kayla's smile was polite but cool, and Diane's smug look told me this wasn't a team decision. What exactly will Kayla be doing? I asked, keeping my tone light. Diane waved a hand. Oh, she'll handle things you're too busy for. You can focus on the baking. I nodded, but my mind was racing. Later, when I saw Kayla's salary in the books, my jaw dropped. It was more than we paid our head baker, for a role that seemed to involve little more than shadowing Jake and giggling at his jokes. Jake, we can't afford this, I said that evening, cornering him in the tiny office. He didn't look up from his laptop. Mom thinks Kayla's got potential. It's fine. I pressed harder. We agreed to discuss hires together. This salary, it's bleeding us dry. He sighed, finally meeting my eyes. It's done, Lana. Relax. Relax? I left the office feeling like I was the only one seeing the storm coming, while Jake and Diane danced in the rain. I've always been a double checker, maybe even a triple checker, especially when it came to numbers. Growing up, I'd watched my parents balance their diner's books with a pencil and a calculator, making every penny count. That instinct kicked in one evening as I rifled through Maple Leaf's filing cabinet, looking for a missing vendor receipt. Tucked behind a stack of old invoices was an envelope that felt heavier than it should. My gut told me to open it, and when I did, my heart sank like a stone in the harbor. It was a loan document, listing Maple Leaf Bakery as collateral for an amount that could have bought half the town. My hands shook as I read the details. Jake had signed it. No mention of me. Jake, I called, storming into his office, the papers clutched tight. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. What's this? I demanded, slapping the document on his desk. He leaned back, rubbing his neck. It's just a loan, Lana. For, upgrades. I laughed, sharp and humorless. Upgrades? This could rebuild the bakery from scratch. What did you use it for? He hesitated, and I knew I wouldn't like the answer. Okay, look, he started. I used some for the beach house I've been fixing up for us. His words hit like a punch. For us, I repeated. Or for your new phone, your mom's wardrobe, and whatever else you've been blowing money on? Before he could answer, Diane swept in, her eyes narrowing at the papers. What's all this fuss? She snapped. I thrust the document at her. Did you know about this? She barely glanced at it. Of course. Jake's doing what's best for our future. Who are you to question him? You're just here to help. That word, help, lit a fire in me. Just help, I said, my voice low but steady. I've been keeping this bakery alive while you two treat it like your personal piggy bank. This loan? It's reckless, and it's going to sink us. Diane's face tightened, but she didn't back down. You're ungrateful, she hissed. This is a family business. I looked at Jake, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just stared at the floor. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I walked out, the papers still in my hand, feeling like I was holding the weight of our crumbling dray. I'd never been one for family meetings at the kitchen table. But that day, it felt like we were negotiating a ceasefire. Jake, Diane, and I sat around the scarred oak table in their house, the air thick with tension. Jake cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "We need to talk about the bakery's future," he said, his voice heavy. I folded my hands, keeping my tone even. "We already did, when I found the loan you hid from me." Diane huffed, her arms crossed. "We need to be realistic, Lana. The bakery's debts are piling up. We need money, and fast." There it was, the we that meant me. I raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" Diane's eyes gleamed, cold and calculating. "Your inheritance. It could clear the debts and save the bakery." My stomach twisted. That money was all I had left of my parents, their years of early mornings and late nights at the diner. It was my safety net, my future. "You want me to use my parents' money?" I asked, disbelief creeping into my voice. Jake finally spoke, his tone almost pleading. "It's just sitting there, Lana. It could help us." "Help us?" I shot back. "Or bail you out of a mess you made?" Diane leaned forward, her voice sharp. "You're part of this family, aren't you? Or are you just here for the good times?" I looked between them, my heart sinking. Jake, who'd promised to build a life with me, and Diane, who'd never seen me as more than an outsider. "I am family," I said, "but you only seem to remember that when you need my wallet." Jake shifted, uncomfortable, but Diane didn't flinch. "If you care about this family, you'll do it," she said. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "If I invest my inheritance, I want a third of the bakery. I want to be a co-owner, officially." The room went quiet, then Diane laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You a co-owner? Don't be absurd. You're not cut out for this." I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "Then find another way to fix your mess, because my inheritance isn't your ATM." Jake's face was unreadable, but Diane's eyes burned with anger. "You'd let this bakery fail?" she spat. I met her gaze, calm but unyielding. "I've been saving it all along. But I won't destroy my future to prop up yours." I walked out, my heart pounding, knowing something had to give, and soon. I wasn't one for sneaking around, but something pulled me to Maple Leaf Bakery that night. The town was quiet, the oceans hummed the only sound as I approached the darkened shop. A faint light glowed from the back office, and my stomach churned. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, the familiar scent of sugar and vanilla now heavy with something else, betrayal. I moved toward the office, hearing murmurs, and when I pushed the door open, my world tilted. There was Jake, his arms around Kayla, her laughter soft as he whispered something in her ear. They jumped apart when they saw me, guilt written all over their faces. "Lana," Jake stammered, straightening his shirt. "It's not what it looks like." I crossed my arms, a cold calm settling over me. "Really? Because it looks like my husband's getting cozy with a new hire at midnight." Kayla smoothed her hair, avoiding my eyes. "We were just going over schedules," she mumbled. I raised an eyebrow. "Schedules?" In his arms, Jake stepped forward, his voice desperate. "Lana, you're overreacting. Let's talk." I laughed, short and sharp. "Talk. I'm done talking. Kayla, you're fired. And Jake, I'll be calling a lawyer in the morning." Kayla's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, Lana. I didn't mean..." I cut her off. "Save it. You both made your choices." Jake's face paled. "You can't fire her," he protested. I turned to him, my resolve like steel. "I can and I will. And I'm done here." I walked out, Jake's voice fading as I stepped into the cool night air, my head high, my heart bruised but unbroken. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Jake, a photo of a bank letter, final notice in bold red letters, demanding immediate repayment. His text read, "We need to talk. This is serious." I typed back, "On my way," and headed to the bakery. Diane was there, pacing, her face like thunder. "Decided to show up, did you?" she snapped. I nodded, unfazed. "You wanted to talk." Jake handed me the letter, his voice low. "The bank's coming for everything." I scanned the numbers, unsurprised but still sickened. So, what's your plan? I asked. Diane glared. We wouldn't be here if you'd just paid when we asked. I met her eyes calm. And I wouldn't be here if your son hadn't tanked the business with his spending and his distractions. Jake started to speak, but I held up a hand. You don't get to play the family card now. You made this mess. Diane's voice was ice. If you won't help, you're out. You're fired. I smiled, slow and deliberate. Fine. But I've got photos of you and Kayla, Jake. I've got records of every cent you've wasted. You think you can push me out and hide this? Good luck explaining to the bank why your business is collapsing without me. Months later, I was in my new office in Portland, a small space filled with the hum of purpose. I'd started a consulting firm, helping small businesses avoid the kind of chaos I'd lived through. One afternoon, my phone rang. Laurel, my old friend from the bakery. Lana, you won't believe this, she said, her voice tinged with pity. Maple Leaf closed last week. The bank foreclosed, and Jake and Diane lost their house. They're staying with his aunt now. I leaned back in my chair, a weight lifting. Thanks for telling me, Laurel, I said. She paused. Everyone knows you were the heart of that place. It fell apart without you. I smiled, bittersweet. I appreciate that. How about you? Found a new gig? Laurel laughed. Yeah, a bakery downtown. It's not Maple Leaf, but it's honest work. We chatted a bit longer, and as I hung up, I looked out at the bustling city. A knock at my door broke my thoughts. My assistant, ushering in a new client, a couple with a struggling cafe. We've heard you're the best at fixing businesses, the wife said, hope in her eyes. I stood, shaking their hands. Let's see what we can do, I said, already mapping out solutions. As they talked, I felt a lightness I hadn't in years. Maple Leaf Bakery had been my dream, but it was also my cage. Walking away was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it set me free. Jake and Diane thought they could break me, but they only broke themselves. Now, I was building something new, one careful step at a time, and the future was mine to shape. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and the fight to find my own path. If this story hit you in the feels, hit that subscribe button and join us, where every challenge is a chance to rise, and every ending is a new beginning. Keep chasing your own truth, and I'll meet you on the other side.